Now, Eric Blake in the comments section says, okay, here's a non-UK European socialism question right here. Why do the socialists in Europe seem perfectly okay with nuclear power, but ours don't? I think that question is actually 10 to 15 to maybe 20 years out of date. 10 or 20 years ago, the Europeans were running their entire culture on nuclear power. But recently, after Fukushima, they have just simply just unplugged it. They've just unplugged it. So they're now on the same thing. Nuclear power, nuclear. I'm doing the Cold War, and people's misunderstanding about nuclear power and nuclear weapons. I would say that there's more hysterical misunderstanding about nuclear power and nuclear weapons than any other topic in our culture today. I mean, honestly. Dave Big Booty comes out with the thorium. Yes, thorium's great, but still. No one died in 3 Mile Island. No one died at Fukushima. People died in Chernobyl, all right, but they died in a reactor that didn't have a containment on it because the Ukrainians thought it was too expensive. And the reactor exploded on Chernobyl because a Communist Party boss who was drunk off his ass was convinced that he needed to impress his political higher-ups with making the reactor run at levels that were lower than were allowed. And all of the technicians are saying, you can't do this, it's going to explode. And he says, well, if it doesn't explode, you're going to the gulag. Okay, well, I guess I'll go back to my desk then. And people see this and they don't think, well, people died. How many people died in coal accidents in the previous century? Hundreds of thousands. And I just don't get it. I would like to live in a society where I'd like to live in a town where I could say, yeah, up on the top of that hill there, underneath the swimming pool, is a 25 megawatt nuclear reactor. It's completely self-contained. It's good for 25, 30 years. And maybe it runs on thorium, maybe it doesn't. It is designed to fail safe, which means that if any component of it fails, the reactor shuts down. It doesn't require water pumps working. It doesn't require anything. If it needs things to work, but if any of them don't work, it just stops. I'd love it. That'd be great. Then you could do what your dad always accused you of. You could actually air condition the outdoors. How many times in a hot climate, or you probably get the inverse in cold climates, you go outside, you leave the door open, your father says, I'm not paying to air condition the entire state of Florida. Well, you got one of those things up there. What difference does it make? That thing's going to generate 25 million watts of power for the next 25, 30 years, whether you use it or not. Why not? Why not air condition outdoors? Clean, cheap energy and clean, and really when you get to nuclear, it's virtually clean, free energy. Just think about that. This is why the left hates it, because it's endless energy. They can't have it. I remember one of these guys, a Greenpeace guy, said, somebody asked him, well, you're so set against oil exploration and stuff like that. How would you feel if humanity were to come upon an extremely inexpensive, absolutely clean form of energy? And this guy said, it'd be the biggest catastrophe in the history of the world. He doesn't want clean energy. He wants no energy. He wants everybody else to put away their stuff. Yeah, Waboff Kurg says dilithium crystals. I'm with you, man. I'm a dilithium guy, personally. This whole office is powered by dilithium crystal. Size of a grain of sand. Now witness the awesome power of this fully armed and operational conservative opinion studio. I didn't know that. Dave Big Booty, again for the win. There is 1,000,000 times the energy in a nuclear bond than there is in an electron bond, which would be a chemical bond. I knew they were more powerful. I didn't know they were that much more powerful. By the way, since the show is known for its ability to run off the rails, if you really understand E equals mc squared, if you understand the relationship between energy, mass, and the speed of light, and all that stuff that makes nuclear power work and everything else work, if you really understand it, and you start thinking, wow, how come uranium can release so much power? How can fusion release, hydrogen atoms release so much power? Where does this power come from? Well, I did something that actually helped me think about this quite a lot. Empty space is virtually empty. There's very, very little matter in space compared to the size. That's why you never see a scale model. That's because I just finally realized that this is the sentence I'm looking for. No one has ever seen a scale model of the solar system because you cannot see the solar system in a scale model. If you are set up so that you see from Earth to Neptune, and you can take that in one glance, then the planets are too small to see. It is a physical impossibility to see the solar system in scale. So anyway, there's a lot of nothing out there. And I came to realize that what really is a better way to look at it is to just look at it for what's actually true. And that is that matter is crystallized energy. That if you take a great deal of energy and smash it into a small place, you get matter. And that energy and matter is locked up in the matter. But if I have antimatter, those two things will go together and create more energy than the sun. A couple of stiff mugs of coffee and anti-coffee probably produce more energy than the sun. So all of this matter is essentially crystallized energy, and that's why it has the power to bend space through gravity. That's a whole other story. Trevor says, if a teacher wants a scale model of the solar system, hand in a blank piece of paper. This is a fun little thought experiment. If you spread out a map of the United States, just an old map of the United States about this big, right? Put it on a table. You look at Los Angeles and New York, and I asked you to tell me how high above the paper do you think an airplane flies? If you fly from LA to New York on a map this big, how high above the paper do you think the airplane is? And the answer is, it's in the paper. You're looking at 2,500 miles of country. Airplane flies at 6 miles high. The plane it's in the paper. It's not above the paper. That's the kind of thing about scale. I mean, technically speaking, obviously, it is slightly above the paper from a mathematical point of view, but I don't think it's detectable by the human eye. So, anyway, interesting little thing there. Do a couple more, and then I'm going to get out of here.